Now I think you might find this video interesting because it's the end of May, beginning of June, and it seems to be the season for replacing steering boxes because they're all leaking. No big deal. So a customer sent me a steering box from Montreal. Now this is where it got a little bit confusing for me because I thought he had a leaking steering box and he got a new one and sent me the old one for testing and repair. Pretty much straightforward, isn't it? Except he sent me the new one for testing and repair, and this is where I got confused. Why on earth would you send me a new steering box to get tested? Well, it was a Chinese one. We've all seen them on internet, you know, and eBay and places like this, these Chinese steering boxes. So I was kind of curious how they work, because are any parts inside compatible with an Adwest? No, none at all. I should show you why, because I stripped it down. This is the body. Right? Now, from the outside appearance it looks identical, doesn't it? Look, see there? Except all this section here is bogus. It doesn't do anything. There's no piston inside there. Believe me, there's no piston. There's just a cap held on with a circlip. That's it. If we had if we had a hole through there, we put compressed air in and blow the cap out. But because there's no that's a complete waste of time, isn't it? The magic hammer. No, there's nothing in it. It's a sample. It's no trillions in it. Buyer beware. Once I've got your money, there's no trillions in it. Mate, Martin, there's not even a piston. There's nothing in it. That's the funniest thing I've seen for years. There's nothing in it.
You and I saw this last night where it said sample on the Made in China website.
Yeah, imagine going to there. Let's get some sockets out. Let's pull it all to bits. This nut here is just a nut locked in. There is nothing inside here whatsoever. So how the hell does it work? It really had me laughing because at first I thought this pipe was loose and that's why it was leaking. This is what I went down the garden path on this one, only to find that this part here where it's supposed to go in, this pipe goes in like this. This was all loose. I thought, oh, it just needs tightening up. But when we got into it and we started looking at it a bit more, it isn't even drilled through. How odd. Again, I took the end off to have a look and there's no piston in it. Nothing in there at all. So, like I said at the beginning, I was kind of convinced that we could use some of these parts on an Adwest, and they're not compatible at all. They fit the same, you know, the bolt pattern here is the same, the bolt pattern here is the same, and the spline. But the rest of it, nothing. Now, I've got to say that I did find some steering boxes online without this piece and just a long shaft. So all this is just for decoration. There's no machining in it, there's no rack in here, there's nothing. So how does it work? It's kind of fiendish, and I think a lot of steering boxes work this way. So what have we got? Well, this is the main shaft. Have you noticed there's no rack on here? And there's no worm and wheel here. The rack is here. Interesting. But even more interesting is this. Now I knew that these things work on a recirculating ball, which is here. Now I took this all apart to see actually how it works, and it is kind of tricky. So this shaft here can turn around and recirculate the balls in here. Now I went to CJP and asked him a little bit about this, because I said, well, are they any good? And he said, well, the recirculating balls are used a lot in high-end CNC machines, they put two back to back so they can adjust them to take out any backlash. Oh, okay, I'll buy that. So we've got a ball race here and a lock ring here. Now this was a bugger to get out, this lock ring, because it was Loctited in. Here, this is where the magic happens, because this is very similar to an Adwest, but an Adwest part it will not fit. So this must have a torque tube in it, or it's very similar to an Adwest. So fluid goes in here, can be directed here or here to go left and right. Now if the box is stationary, fluid will go from here to these ports here and exit by these ports, which we are familiar with. No big deal. So that's how it works. But how it really works is kind of fiendish and cunning, because bear in mind there's pressure going this way and this way out of here. It's ported through this little hole here. So you've got pressure going through there, through this cylinder, and acting on the backside of this piston to push this forward to assist the steering as you're turning it. The other pressure is internal in the box and it pushes it this way. See? So there's only one port. Very clever. Now, as we know that there's no parts interchangeable with an Adwest, is this the answer for a steering box for a Land Rover? Now I know this is a left-hand drive and they've gone through all the trouble of putting bogus parts on, but is it the answer for a Land Rover? Well, it could be quite possible, because with the price of parts from Land Rover now, you know that little worm we fitted to the white one that was all chipped up and beaten up? That was $2,000 for that piece. That's a ridiculous price. Now, I did a bit of research on these boxes, and the cheapest box I found, supplied by a supplier in China through Alibaba, was $137. $237, excuse me, with $114 shipping. Wow, that's cheap. But looking at it, and people are saying, oh, it's cheap, it's not going to work. Well, I'm not really sure. Now, can you get parts for this? You can buy a seal kit for it. I've seen those advertised, but I haven't seen any individual parts. Now, what parts do you need? There's hardly anything there, look. That's it. That's all you're going to get, look. That's all you're going to get. That and a body. There's some fairly hefty bearings in there. And inside here, I don't know whether we're going to see this very clearly, but it's got a lot better sealing than the old Adwests. In fact, it's got not one but two high pressure seals in here. You can probably see them there. There's a little Teflon ring, and then there's an O-ring in there, and a Teflon ring and an O-ring, and then it's got another dust covered cum seal here. So obviously they've learnt from Adwest's mistake instead of putting a really poor seal on. I don't know. It's really interesting how it works. So I'm going to bang this back together again. And it might be just a solution for Land Rovers, because I had an idea. Why? I'll put this together and I'll test it, make sure it works. But what does it feel like on the steering? Does it fly back like a Land Rover one does? Nobody knows. But the customer's coming down, I think he's coming down on the 8th of June, which is next week, to fit this and swap it over with his existing steering box. And then we can compare the two. Because my idea was, I'll buy one and I'll stick it onto my 130, because my 130 one doesn't leak, it's really good. So I thought, well, if push comes to shove, I'll keep this one on if it's good, and I'll sell the Adwest one because that's what a lot of people like. So let me put this back together again and we'll give it a test. Right, so I'm putting this back together again, and you probably have noticed here this is on a taper. These teeth are on a taper, and that's why it's got the old like style Adwest nut, so you can move this up and down to take out the backlash between the gears. It's kind of clever, isn't it? One other thing that's clever against the Adwest one, you see where there's a little shoulder here that goes through the seals, where the Adwest one was directly onto the shaft. there was no transition between the two. That means when we put the seals in, the seals are hitting this chamfer and going in that rather smoothly. So that means we don't have to put a safety cap on here to stop the splines from cutting the seals. So I've got the steering box back onto the test bench and there's no leaks out of it. That's £1,100 or 7,000 kilopascals, whoever he is. Anyway, it's a funny box. You see, the thing is on here, I have to hold it with my clamp on the side because the original mounting bolts, this might be a bit thicker and my mounting bolts won't go through here to hold it onto my test frame. So that means I can't put a bar underneath it like an arm to turn it against the frame, so I've nothing to test the power steering ability. But like I say, it's only a piston that moves the rack backwards and forwards up here. That's all there is. And this can't leak out of here because it's a dead end casting, it's a blind casting. And this, well, that does nothing at all. Nothing out the bottom. This seal here now is sealed up because JP put a different seal in it for me. The paint on it isn't up to standard because it comes off with the brake cleaner. So, but all in all, it's not too bad. That's giving it big licks. It is to be noted too that there's no bleed screw on the top. There's no bleed screw at all. Maybe they didn't need it. No fancy washer neither up here. Now, one thing I did notice, it is quite a few turns to lock. Well, it's a little bit more. I think the Land Rover one was 3 3/4. So there's our start point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 1/4. No leaks out the casing. It did originally, it leaked out of here. I think what's done it when it's in the factory, they've nipped the O-ring. It's a very, there's not much of a chamfer here. Now this, look at this is one thing I noticed. It turns on its own. Because there's no wheels on it, see? That's the oil going through the pump, is going through the valve and pushing back this way. Look, it's come to its stop here. So that would be turning to the left. I don't think it would be a problem on the car because it's got its wheels on. It's alright there, look. It's not moving. But in the centre, we're doing it now. The oil's nice and hot. No leaks out of the shaft. I don't know, let's turn it off. So, oh, I've got the music on. I had to turn my music off, I had a bit of Prince on to cheer me up on a Sunday morning. So this box is back together again. What do I think of it? Well, I really don't know. I think what we're going to have to do is sharpish get that vehicle in here that's got the Adwest leaking on, put it on, get it, because it should be kind of quick to change, and then we'll pipe it up and what have you, because like I said, that's an easy job, and then let him to take it for a run around, because he's from Montreal, he wants to come in and do it in a day. Well, should be able to do it in a day. And if this is no good, well, in the meantime, I can have a look at his box and say, is it a yay or a nay? Because we've seen an awful lot of steering boxes at this time of year, and it's always that bearing that's bad on the worm wheel, and there's no real way of changing it. JP and I had a chat about it yesterday, And he says, I don't know how you're going to do it. You know, we could heat a bearing up and shrink it onto the shaft. Well, that's possible, but it's finding an inner race. I'm sure there's one somewhere, but what do you do? But again, back to this box here. What would you think of it? You know, I know SP panels are doing them for about 400 quid, which isn't bad really considering an Adwest one. It's what, a quarter of the price? But I think the proof of the pudding's in the eating, isn't it? Is it going to work? I mean, I don't mind 4.5 turns to lock rather than 3 3/4, 3 3/4. I can live with that all day because it's not very often you go from lock to lock, apart from when you're parking in a tight space. I like the seal design for the shaft. I don't think that's going to leak. It's good old-fashioned hydraulic seals. Not like the Adwest one. Well, the Adwest one's got a hydraulic seal on, but it eats into the shaft. These, I don't think they will. I don't think this particular design will eat into the shaft. But then again, the Adwest one goes back to like, what, it'd be early 1980s, late 1970s, 1980s. Tough one, isn't it? It is a tough one. When I put one on my vehicle, I'd be tempted, but again, I don't drive my Land Rover all that much to give it a good thrashing. But if you ain't got one, what choice have you got? Write to me in the comments below. I'll read all the comments and we'll see what we think. I'm just a bit disappointed I couldn't get it on my test bench, and I don't really want to redesign it just for one job. I dare say I could. But maybe I'll take it off the stand here. I mean, they must have designed it so it fits on the Land Rover, but I designed this to fit on the steering box. Let me take this off and get the camera out and I'll show you. So that's my setup for the steering box. But if we look down here, you can probably quite clearly see there, maybe not, in the bottom of the hole, it's a good half a hole out, you know, so, but it's tight here. Is it going to go on a chassis? It must do. They must have found that out for surely. And it could be my frame that's wrong.